Joe, an ordinary man going through his usual morning routine, was startled when he found a strange, misshapen creature flopping next to his toilet. Initially thinking it was a bizarre fish that somehow ended up in his bathroom, he quickly rushed it to the vet for help. However, when the vet, Dr. Anderson, saw the creature, his shocked reaction was more than Joe could have anticipated. The vet uttered the words, "This is impossible," which only deepened Joe's confusion. Before Joe could even process what was happening, Dr. Anderson urgently called the police, leaving Joe even more bewildered. With no answers, Joe was told to wait in the vet's examination room until the authorities arrived. As the police sirens neared, Joe realized the door had been locked behind him, and he was unable to leave. Panic set in as he banged on the door, demanding to be let out, but the vet coldly responded, "No, I can't let you leave." Joe couldn't comprehend what was going on. What was so special about the creature he had found, and why was the police involved? The unanswered questions gnawed at him as the minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity. The day had started off uneventfully for Joe. He woke up late, nearly noon, and casually started his morning routine. After brushing his teeth and washing his face, he sat down to use the toilet. As he flushed and washed his hands, he heard a strange sound, like something wet had fallen to the floor. Thinking it was just a noise from his old toilet, he didn't think much of it at first. But the sound persisted, and when he turned around, he saw the bizarre creature lying on the floor. He was stunned and unsure of what to make of it. After a few moments of shock, Joe grabbed the largest bucket he could find and carefully placed the creature inside. It was a slimy, fish-like blob with white and pinkish spots, eyes, and a mouth, looking like nothing Joe had ever seen. He couldn't fathom how it got there, though he wondered if it somehow came from the toilet. He took several photos and placed the bucket in his bathtub to keep the creature alive, but even after researching online and sharing the photos with others, no one could identify it. Feeling out of options, Joe decided to take the creature to a vet. After calling several clinics, Dr. Anderson agreed to see him. Joe arrived at the clinic and carefully transported the bucket, relieved that the creature had survived the trip. Once inside the clinic, he was asked to wait. As he sat there, he couldn't help but feel out of place surrounded by normal pets, while his strange discovery remained a mystery. When Dr. Anderson called him into the examination room, Joe explained the bizarre find. The vet's reaction was immediate and intense, his eyes widening in disbelief as he examined the creature. Dr. Anderson asked Joe where it had come from, but despite Joe's explanations, the vet seemed perplexed. At this point, the vet called the police, speaking in hushed tones and referring to proof, but offered no further explanation to Joe. The situation became even more unsettling when Dr. Anderson locked Joe in the examination room, telling him to wait for the police. Joe, now trapped, tried to force the door open but failed. His panic grew as he realized that whatever was happening was far from ordinary. When the police finally arrived, a stern officer questioned Joe, but his skepticism was evident. Joe explained everything, but the officer seemed unconvinced. He was told he could leave but was asked for his address and phone number, suggesting they might contact him after investigating the creature further. With little closure, Joe left the clinic, still confused and uneasy. Once home, Joe called his friends to share the bizarre chain of events. Joe's friend Mark visits him, confessing that a fish found in a river was part of a prank placed in Joe's toilet. Initially angry, Joe learns that the prank escalated when it involved the police. After informing an officer, Joe and Mark are interrogated, and the police investigate the river. The prank leads to the discovery of an illegal animal testing lab hidden near the river, where the fish, a blobfish, was being tested after being illegally imported from Australia. The police shut down the lab and arrest the workers. The blobfish's discovery sparks conversations about wildlife trafficking and conservation. Joe's story makes the news, and he becomes an advocate for wildlife awareness. Though the prank started as a joke, it ended up uncovering a serious issue. The blobfish is returned to its natural habitat in Australia, marking a win for conservation. Joe, now in the spotlight, plans a future prank on his friends, determined to make it memorable without the legal complications.